Anyway, thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. 大家好. Hello. So, this is an mruby and Dreamcast presentation. So, if you're here, I hope you'll be convinced that you should get a Dreamcast and get started on development. But anyway, let me get started. So this is a Dream Present, which is a Dreamcast presentation program. I will talk about it a little bit more later. By the way, oops, what happened? Okay, so this is what the code is going to look like. If you're far at the back and you can't see, please come forward because I have not implemented any zooming. So anyway, this is just an example. You don't have to read it. So now here's the title screen: developing Dreamcast games with mruby. And sorry, I have to say, sorry, it's actually mruby Dreamcast games and apps with mruby. And I'm going to focus a lot on this presentation tool that I've made. And let's get started. So before we get started on the contents, a little bit about me. I'm Yuji Yokoo. I am a web dev, and I love Ruby, and I use it for anything personal. At work, I use a whole bunch of languages because our team lead wanted to use a whole bunch of different languages. And so I used to be a Windows desktop application developer, and that was over 10 years ago. I was using Microsoft Foundation classes and Win32 API. That's a long time ago, and I have not done much C programming since then, nothing significant. So until I got back into this, I got really rusty, but I wasn't complete novice, but I was by no means an expert. And again, a little bit more about me. I am originally from Tokyo, Japan. I now live in Adelaide, Australia. And this is my first time in Taiwan, and I'm absolutely loving it. This is a great place. And this is the first time I'm talking at a conference. So I might be talking super fast and not making much sense, but please tell me to slow down if I'm going too fast, if I'm not making sense. I mean, if I don't make sense, don't tell me. Okay. Now, here's a little bit about, again, more about me. And this is how far Adelaide, Australia is from Taipei. Up the top, there's Taipei. Down the bottom, Adelaide. And it took me 3 different flights to get here. And that was to Melbourne, then to Hong Kong, then to Taipei. And I left home at about 5 a.m. on Tuesday and got here midnight. And yeah, but I think the trouble was worth it. So before I get into the actual content, there's a table of contents. I'll tell you a little bit about this presentation app, and probably some of you may not know what Dreamcast is, so I'll start from there. And then I'll tell you what you've probably heard of mruby, but you may not have seen much of it. So quickly tell you what it is, and also Callisti OS, which is cross-platform game development library. I'll tell you a little bit about it, and then homebrew application development steps on Dreamcast. And then I'll just show some bits of the code for the presentation app, and just I'll talk about emulation and the real device, and sending the program to the actual device. And at that point, you should know how to do this, and I'll tell you what I am intending to do with this project later. Anyway, and at the end, I am planning to do a short demo of the game that I have developed. So let's get started, finally. So this application, this is called, I've developed this and I named it Dream Present. So it's a presentation that runs on Dreamcast. And it's a presentation app, it runs on Dreamcast, and the whole thing is live demo. And I thought, oh, what could go wrong? Yes, something has already gone wrong. The HDMI output cannot be recorded. So I don't know what the recording is going to look like when it's released, but yeah, something has already gone wrong. So hopefully nothing more. And it's able to render text and show PNG images, and at the bottom, time and page progress shamelessly stolen from Rabbit when I saw it, and I can go back and forth on pages and stuff like that, but a very minimal presentation application. And here's an example slide. So here's an example. Text is black background, which you can't see because it's too dark, and some yellow text and red line. And this is what the exact source of this page. So there's this white square is a white square with the source is the image, and well, I started with a very simple way of organizing text into paragraphs. Then eventually, as I grew this presentation up, it sort of grew into a presentation description language. It's not very nice, but I suppose that's what happens when you grow things organically and not take care of making it nicer. But let's keep that aside. So I'll start with what is Dreamcast. Dreamcast is, I don't know if I can lift it, so actually just a sec. So Dreamcast looks like this. There's one that's running over there, but I have a spare unit just in case this one failed. And so that's a video game console. It's Sega's current video game console. Okay. Maybe it's just latest, but still, bringing the same thing, right? And it was released in 1998, Hitachi SH4 processor, which is a 32-bit RISC processor, and 16 megabytes of RAM. That's, whopping 16 megabytes. It was awesome back then. And you might ask, why Dreamcast? 2018 was the 20th anniversary year of Dreamcast. It was released in November 1998 in Japan, and I realized that it was coming up last year, about September, and I thought, oh, I can do something cool, maybe, and then at the time I thought, oh, maybe I can get mruby on it. And then I started looking into it, and come November I had absolutely nothing running, but eventually I got things going. And also, a personally very important reason, I had one still working, which I bought in 2002. So that was another reason why I used Dreamcast, and Dreamcast is still loved by many. And apparently people buy lots of clothes with Dreamcast logos still. And Dreamcast can run your custom code, like unofficial applications could be run on Dreamcast with no hardware modification, which is a huge advantage if you want to run some homebrew code. So it requires, well, some units don't support this, but majority of Dreamcast units in circulation, no longer in production, but they support custom code booting. And also amazingly, there's still quite a strong indie and homebrew and development going, and people still make commercial video games for Dreamcast, and they sell it, well, Sega doesn't distribute them anymore, but they sell it on online game sites, for example. And Dreamcast has good OSS library for homebrew, which means sometimes with video game consoles, people have to use unlicensed, hacked version of the official SDK, but that's illegal. Whereas with Dreamcast, you can do it completely with free software. Oh, yes, BSD licensed, I believe the main library was. So what is not so good with Dreamcast? No more units are produced, so the world is slowly running out of Dreamcast units that works. And also, peripherals are hard to get. So there used to be microphones, cameras, and fishing controller, malacas you could get for the Dreamcast, but they can't be purchased easily anymore. And there is no app store or internet-based distribution system, so that means you have to physically give the discs to, if you're selling the games, you have to physically sell the discs, or you have to sell the images and expect people to burn them onto the discs. But at the same time, there's no distribution channel, means there's no app store to get your app taken off from. So maybe that's a positive. And lots of lost information. A lot of stuff was active back in earlier in this century, so 2002, 2004, and back then a lot of stuff. People had a lot of information available, but then a lot of links have died, and also a lot of domains have expired, and they some of them could be found on forum archives and Wayback Machine and that kind of stuff, but there's a lot of stuff that's very hard to find these days. Just a quick comparison of Dreamcast and PS4. Dreamcast runs SH4 at 200 megahertz, PlayStation 4 runs AMD Jaguar at 1.6 gigahertz, and 24 megabytes of combined RAM between main and video, and PlayStation 4 has 8 gigabytes of RAM. So compared to the modern consoles, it's very, very limited. So what is a mruby? You probably know briefly, like basically what it is. It's Ruby for embedding into your C applications. Not necessarily limited to C, but the common use case is that you want to write part of your application in C, part of your application in Ruby, then mruby is perfect. So the advantage of using a mruby, main logic is written in Ruby. It's fun, at least, I don't know about everyone else, but I find it a lot more pleasant to write Ruby than C. So using Ruby here makes sense to me, and flexible, and all these, everything good about Ruby is available through mruby. And also I encounter less bugs. For example, string manipulation in C is very hard, and this is a commit log from this presentation app a couple of days ago. I was wondering why this thing was crashing intermittently, and then I realized there was a memory allocation bug because I didn't quite account for the null terminator on a C string. Basically, C string is a character array with a null character at the end. And string length function gives you the length of exact length of the string. Straightforward, yes, but also you have to allocate one extra character for the null terminator. But anyway, I forgot that, and I was getting intermittent crashes. But this, none of this would happen if I could stay completely within Ruby. So rule of thumb, I could pick C or Ruby, but write all code in Ruby unless it's not feasible. That's how I did with this presentation app. And typically C is used for interfacing with the underlying libraries. And what is CallistoOS? CallistoOS, also called Chaos, is a cross-platform console game development library or system, but Wikipedia says it's for the Sega Dreamcast console, and it turns out it is cross-platform, but there's only one single platform that's fully supported, and that is Dreamcast. It used to have some ports in other platforms, but now it's only Dreamcast. So, and it comes with nice tools you need, pretty much everything you need to develop a game. So cross-compilers, linkers, libraries, etc., etc. And Dreamcast homebrew development, you would go about it like this. You start with, you write your C code, and you cross-compile it for the SH4 platform, the Dreamcast's main processor. And then you link it against the Chaos DC Dreamcast library, which is also for SH4, and then you get an executable file. At this point, this executable is runnable on Dreamcast if you can somehow get this executable on your PC to the Dreamcast unit. But often you go one more step of making a self-bootable disk image, and then you end up with a disk image. The most commonly used format is the disk juggler image, CDI, and disk juggler format is good because you can use the demo version of it still available, and you can use it to write onto your disk. And what happens, this is an overview of what happens if you use mruby with it. So you write some mruby code and you write some C code. C code is typically the loader that loads mruby and then kicks it off. And you compile the mruby code with the mrbc on the host. That gives you the bytecode, and this bytecode and C code can be compiled, cross-compiled together into an sh4 object file. And again, you link with the Chaos Dreamcast library, and also this time you have to have mruby library compiled for sh4, and then you get an executable file just the same as before, and then this is runnable on Dreamcast, and then you do you can again make the self-bootable image. Now, this part surrounded in red, I have organized into a development environment with Vagrant and VirtualBox. So it's available on GitLab and also GitHub if you want to give it a try. It's you have to run Ansible scripts, and then you have to spend a lot of time waiting for it. But and also it takes a lot of disk space. But hopefully it works. Actually, it probably wouldn't work for you the first time, but I would like to know where it breaks down so that I can fix it. And so this is it's actually not very cleanly set up. It works for me, and I'd like to address some of these issues later. And I'll just quickly show you the C code that is the main entry point for the this executable. So there's some Dreamcast related stuff, and up the top, extern, which means the bytecode, mruby bytecode is defined in some other file, and then in main, mruby is initialized, and modules defined and C functions are made available to mruby, and then mruby code is run, and then at the bottom I've got some finish up stuff. And this is what mruby bytecode looks like, and this is what you get if you compile your mruby source into bytecode. I'm not sure why this is flickering, but hopefully nobody minds. And I'll show you a little bit of how you interact with the hardware in Chaos. So you have these buttons. Let's say you're interested in the start button, or maybe some of these buttons, and so it's defined as on Chaos you get a 16-bit integer with each bit representing the button is off or on, and these macros actually tell you which bit they are. So you get, when you look at the button state, you have each bit representing B button, A button, start button, up, down, left, right, that sort of stuff. And this is a C code that makes button state readable from mruby. So at the bottom, C functions are made available for mruby, and then up the top there's Maple bus reading, which is Dreamcast input bus. It's read, and then in the middle there's some checking is done. But you don't really have to read this. This sort of C code is needed to check the button state. But from Ruby, once that is done at C level, this is all you see if you stay within Ruby. So you just get the button state and feed that into the program function that checks if the start is on. And quickly, I'll just go through this. Top part is the Ruby part that starts the presentation, and the bottom of the presentation application. So Dream present, the presentation application class is initialized and started, and the bottom part, the presentation is created with a bunch of page data and run. And when presentation is run, it gets into a loop from index 0 to the last page, and renders a page, waits for input, and if it's depending on the input, it adjusts the page index. Go forward, go back, or go to the end. Oops. That was my Dreamcast. So, and this is a puzzle game code. I've got, again, this is similar to presentation. Outer loop, because I want to, if the game finishes, I want to initialize the game state and go back, start another game, wait for the start button, and draw the initial empty board, and then this is the inner loop while the game's running, and there's check the input, update the board, that sort of stuff happens, but and game logic continues, but this is the inner loop that runs the game round. And also, similar to the controller, I used chaos function calls to access the controller state. Here's the accessing the video RAM. What happens when I try to load the PNG images in this application is that chaos makes the VRAM video RAM available to be manipulated, so each location corresponding to a pixel, so I can set a color directly on each pixel in a for loop. So this is an example of drawing a line. So that's the part where it's VRAM is with an address is getting a color set. So then now we know how to write the code, so it comes down to where to run or test your code. And if you can do it on the actual device, that's always good, because because it is the actual device, and that's where you ultimately want to go. But emulators are really handy too, because you can complete everything on your computer. And Dreamcast emulators are generally good, but often I've had difficulties building and running on some platforms, like some platforms are supported more than others, and also there are some compatibility issues, like a lot of emulators focus on running commercial games rather than homebrew things. So some features are not typical your typical homebrew application requires may not be implemented by emulators. And also, after all, it's not the same. If it runs on an emulator, it's great, but it feels way better if you can run it on the real unit, like this one right here. So it's not the same. But when you use an emulator, you can print, use some print debugs, because the console gives you the standard output. You can also get that if you use a serial cable or Ethernet to load code onto Dreamcast. So, for example, this is when if I'm running an emulator, I get this sort of I can do this sort of output. I've added too many trace outputs and getting really noisy, and I can't really tell what it is. But this is really handy for debugging. So that's the emulator. But how about getting the program onto the actual Dreamcast unit? So you cross-compile the code, and then you get the executable, but you somehow have to get that from your PC to the actual unit. And I was talking to a young programmer who was probably older than Dreamcast, but not by much. He's in his 20s, and he's in his 20s, and he said, he asked me, is there a USB port to get the stuff stuff across? And my answer, no, it was 1998. There's a serial port at the back. So 1998 was when Apple released their first iMac, and Microsoft was yet to release Windows 98 SE. These were major steps in USB's popularity. So one option is to to get code across to your devices to use CDRs. Another option, if you don't know what CDRs are, they are writable CDs. You can only write them once. You can use SDs with SD loader software. The serial port at the back, you can get an SD card reader for it, and you can plug it into the back of into that serial port, and you should be able to use that as where you load your code from. But I've never tried it. I will tell you a little bit more about why I have not tried it later. But another thing you could use is what's called broadband adapters. They are Ethernet adapters basically for the Dreamcast. And also you could use serial cable, or also called DC coders cable. And CDRs are expensive. Each time I write, I have to discard, and I fix something and then write it, and then realize it's not fixed. I have to write another disk. That's too expensive. As well, even if my funds are unlimited, it's quite tedious to write the disk, get it out of the drive, put it in the unit, and then boot it from there. So I didn't like that, and SDs are also quite cumbersome when it comes, like the fact that you have to pull out the card and write that onto it and then put it back in the reader. That kind of stuff is very tedious. Broadband adapters, Ethernet adapters, they're very expensive. This is from eBay Australia. Top unit, the top one is 200 Australian dollars. Bottom one is also 200 Australian dollars, and that's about 140 US dollars. And to get started with that, I didn't want to invest this much, so I decided to try the serial port. But then people built a lot of serial cables back in the day, and there was a lot of information available. The shops that were selling the serial cables closed down due to PlayStation Portable's trademark issues with Sony. But well, the option I had left was to build my own serial cable, and then the information I had available said, get a Yuji Pocket to DC serial cable. Yuji Pocket was another handheld game console from around 2000, and you could get a link cable. But of course you can't buy new ones, and what you have to do is to buy one, cut off the end, and use the connector. And they cost half as much as broadband adapters. And I wasn't sure about this, so I looked for another option, and SD card readers were available, and I decided to buy an SD card reader, take this apart, and use this connector. And I did this terrible soldering job. It worked. Looks horrible. It looks like it's about to snap off, and it probably is. It probably is about to snap off, but it worked. This is the finished cable. Up the top is the terrible soldering job connector. It's upside down so that you can't see it. And but this is what the finished cable looked like. And after many days of debugging the cable, it worked. So now you have the complete knowledge of writing the program and setting up the environment, writing the program, building it, and getting it across to the Dreamcast. Now you should be, you have all the knowledge. You should be ready to go, except all the details I haven't told you. And that would be probably, I don't have enough time for that today. But for this development environment I'm building, I would like to automate a lot of things, and also currently it takes 10 gigabytes of space and takes a lot of time, and I'd like to change that. And also I'd like to publish more documentation, like tutorials. Currently there's README on one of two of the projects I've got, and one of them has got no README, and that's all the documentation I've published on this so far. So I would like to make more information available, and I would like to separate some common Dreamcast platform related stuff into a library. And also at some point I would try to get someone else to try it. Maybe I'll have to buy them a Dreamcast, but I will do it at some point. And also, right now, it's only my program only uses the video RAM and the controller. So there's a whole bunch of other features like sound and the graphics chip, which is separate from video RAM. Like you can actually render some cool stuff. And also visual memory unit, that's the memory card. And so I'd like to add those features at some point. And currently everything I built fits into the 16 megabytes of RAM. So I'd like to build something more demanding and see if I can do that. I'm sure I can, but. And so before I get into the demo, I'd like to thank, I'd like to thank particularly mruby developers and CallistoOS developers and Dreamcast Indie and homebrew communities, particularly around the Simulant library. They've been very welcome and supportive. And thank you, RubyConf Taiwan, and my friends Adam Davies, Oli Patland, and Paul Fioravanti. If they didn't review my presentation before I did this, you would have seen a lot worse version of this. And also thank you everyone here. There's some links to more information, or actually probably all just repos, the development environment and the game I'm about to demo, and this presentation application, and the information on how you could construct serial cables. It took me a few days, and also it was really tiring, and I wouldn't recommend it, but if you must, please, if you're very good with building hardware, that might be a thing. So, and ask me anything on Twitter. So if you're interested at all in trying this, feel free to contact me. So, and when I quit this presentation, it goes into the demo, so there's no coming back. So I'm about to quit this. So, and I need both hands. So let's go. Yes, score one. Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay. Any questions for Yuji about mruby, Dreamcast, games? Yes.
So awesome talk. It's a lot of fun. Guess it's not a very technical question, but your feeling about maybe you have to do a lot of research for this, and it seems like you took a lot of inspiration from the modding community. I guess maybe what are your feelings or your views on like the differences between the video game and modding and hacking community and the web development community, and maybe like what you feel you learned, or like what maybe web development community could take from this kind of more tinkering and hacking culture?
I am not sure, to be honest. They're all very nice people and very nice communities, typically. And yeah, I think I think it's I'm not sure if this answers the question at all, but I think it's a lot of people I come across doing web work, and a lot of people don't seem to be motivated to do whatever. So just I think just if you pursue your interest, for example, I thought, hey, it would be good to learn some new web-related technology, or it would be cool to develop a Dreamcast game, and then I decided to go this way. So I think it's good to just go and do whatever that interests you more.
Any more questions for Yuji? Yes.
Also, I'm just wondering about, you basically do the presentation system and also again, which is more difficult.
The presentation tool has way more features. This game is, it has been done many times everywhere, and They have different types of challenges, but the presentation tool has so many features, and also I think another thing to this was that as I started doing presentation, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Like, okay, maybe I'll just hard code all the presentation content in a string. And that was a very bad idea. but then, and then eventually I started using a separate file, and that kind of stuff probably made it a lot harder, because this game, I know exactly what I wanted to do. So.
Any more questions? Yes.
How do you manage the memory?
Yes, mruby has garbage collection. Yeah, and fortunately, because what I built were so small, I was a little bit concerned about memory issues, but I encountered no memory issues, so I pretend it's all good, and it's, yeah. Could be broken underneath, but I haven't seen any issues myself.
Okay, I think we can take 2 to 3 questions. Anyone? Yes.
Not really a question, but I have a Dreamcast, and we'll give it a try.
That would be awesome.
Okay. Any more stories? No? Okay, let's give Yuji a big hand.